You already know something is wrong with the people around you. You have known it for a long time, not because they have done something obvious, not because they have betrayed you in a way you can point to and name, but because you are intelligent enough to watch the patterns. You see the small withdrawals, the silence after you succeed, the enthusiasm when you are struggling. You see it, and the fact that you can see it and still cannot move. That is the specific suffocation you are living inside right now. Not confusion, not hurt. The particular paralysis of someone who understands the game being played against them and has not yet become cold enough to play back. This video will not comfort you. It will give you something colder than comfort. It will give you a framework so precise, so irreversible, that after tonight you will never look at the people closest to you the same way again. Machiavelli wrote this in The Prince: men sooner forget the death of their father than the loss of their inheritance. Read that again, not with your emotions, with your eyes open. He was not talking about greed. He was talking about the architecture of human loyalty. He was saying that what people protect is not you. It is what you represent to them, what you provide, what your continued presence costs them, and what your absence takes away. That is the first cold truth about the people you trust. They are not running on love. They are running on programming, and you did not write the code. The people closest to you are not loyal to you. They are loyal to the version of you that serves their psychological comfort. Think about the people in your life who you would call your circle. The ones you have kept, the ones you have forgiven, the ones you have excused, returned to, defended in rooms where they were not present. Now ask yourself one question, not who they are. Ask when they are most present, when they are most warm, when they are most invested in your life, because the answer is data, and data does not lie. They show up when you need them, meaning when your need makes them feel necessary. They show up when you are accessible, meaning when your struggle keeps you at their level. They show up when you are predictable, meaning when you are not evolving into something they cannot control. Loyalty is not a virtue in most people. It is a survival strategy, and survival strategies expire the moment they become expensive. You did not lose them when things went wrong. You lost them the moment you stopped making things easy for them. That is not a statement about their character. That is a statement about what loyalty actually is for the majority of human beings walking this earth. Power is a language. The people around you speak it, whether they know it or not. And if you cannot read what they are saying between the lines of their behavior, you are not operating with an accurate picture of your own life. Most people who hear this will feel a flash of recognition. Then they will immediately begin making excuses for the specific person who just appeared in their mind. Do not do that tonight. Stay with the recognition. It is the only honest thing in the room. This brings us to something even colder. Something most people will not follow through to the end, because the next thing is not about them. It is about you. Your inner circle is not a collection of people you chose. It is an accurate psychological portrait of your own self-worth at the time you let them in. You are not a victim of bad people. You are the architect of your own infiltration. Every person standing close to you right now passed an entry test. Whether you set that test consciously or not, you set it. The question is what kind of test were you running? Robert Greene documented how Cardinal Richelieu, upon consolidating power in the French court under Louis Roman XIII, did not simply remove his enemies. He audited every proximity. He examined who stood nearest the king and asked one question for each of them: what does this person gain from this position? Not whether they were loyal, not whether they were friends. What do they gain? Because Richelieu understood something most people never learn. Power begins not with the moves you make outward. Power begins with the audit you conduct inward. Who do you allow to stand beside you? And why? Every person in your life right now passed a test you set. The question is, what kind of test were you running? If you have ever apologized for growing, if you have ever made yourself smaller so that someone else could feel comfortable, if you have ever stayed quiet in a room where your silence was the only thing holding the peace, then you already know the answer. You were running a test with a standard so low that almost anyone could pass it, and almost everyone did. Look at who is still in your life, not with gratitude, with clarity, because here is the part that most videos will never say to you. The problem was never their character. The problem was the standard you set before they ever arrived. A river does not blame the water for the shape it takes. The shape was already there. You built the banks. You decided how wide. You decided how low. And the water simply followed the path you made available. Drop a comment below if you have ever realized in the middle of a conversation that the person talking to you was not actually talking to you. They were talking to the version of you they needed to believe in. Name it if you have felt it. You are not alone in this room tonight. Now we go deeper. Because understanding how people got in is one thing. What comes next will cost you more than recognition. It will cost you grief. Most of the emotional bonds in your life are not built on respect. They are built on your willingness to shrink, to accommodate, to remain predictable. What most people call love, what most people call closeness, is not built on who you are at your fullest. It is built on the agreement you made, usually without words, to stay within a certain boundary, to not become too much, to not grow beyond the size they assigned you. And as long as you honor that agreement, the relationship feels stable. The moment you break it, you discover what was actually underneath. During the Nuremberg trials, the psychologist Gustav Gilbert sat across from Hermann Goering and asked him how ordinary people, not monsters, not soldiers born to violence, could be made to participate in mass destruction. Goering's answer was immediate. He said, "It is simple. You make them afraid. And then you make them feel that belonging to the group is the only protection from the fear." That is not a historical lesson about Nazis. That is a description of every controlling relationship you have ever been in. Fear plus belonging. The fear of being alone. The belonging that comes only at the price of your silence, your compliance, your willingness to not become anything they did not already approve of. The people who love you most are often the most threatened by your evolution, because your growth is not just your growth to them. It is their loss of certainty, their loss of the version of you they understood, their loss of the control they held through your predictability. Your evolution is, to them, a kind of betrayal, not because they are evil, because they are human, and most humans chose comfort over truth every single time. What they miss when you leave is not you. What they miss is the version of you that never challenged them. Silence is a weapon, not the silence of someone with nothing to say. The silence of someone who has already made their decision, who has already seen clearly, who is no longer performing for an audience that was never worth performing for. When you stop explaining yourself to people who have already decided what you are not withdrawing. You are selecting, and selection is the first act of someone who has decided to operate at a different level. Here is the question you need to sit with right now, not answer. Sit with: which relationships in your life require a smaller version of you to survive? Say their names in your mind right now, because the answer to that question is not information. It is a verdict. Now, something that will make you angry, not at them, at yourself, and that anger will be useful if you use it correctly. Some of the people who stayed through your lowest moments did not stay because of love. They stayed because your lowest moments were the version of you they could handle. Sun Tzu understood this with the precision of a surgeon. He wrote in The Art of War that allies who appear during your retreat must be studied for what they gain from your position. Because the general who cannot distinguish rescue from exploitation does not just lose a battle. He loses the next war to the person who appeared to save him. Think about who was most present when you were broken, most available when you were lost, most invested in your recovery, but specifically, your recovery back to the version of them that fit most comfortably inside your life. Were they building you up, or were they managing the terms of your rebuilding? There is a difference. And the difference is everything. Loyalty during weakness is not proof of devotion. It is often proof that your weakness was the condition they required to stay. Some people did not stand by you through the storm. They stayed because the storm kept you manageable. The moment you became too clear, too certain, too decided, they became uncomfortable, distant, critical. They began calling your growth arrogance. They began missing the old you, not because the old you was better, because the old you was easier to stand next to without feeling the gap. Now ask yourself, what do you owe someone whose presence in your life depended on you staying small? Think about the guilt you have carried for the people you outgrew, the apologies you made for becoming more. Write down the name of someone you are still protecting out of obligation. Then ask yourself what you are actually protecting and why. Now, the part that most people will not stay for, because what comes next does not feel like relief. It feels like standing in a room that used to be full and realizing the echo is not emptiness. It is space. Once you remove everyone who required your diminishment to remain, what is left is not loneliness. It is the foundation of a genuinely dangerous life. The ignored becoming the unstoppable, that is not a metaphor for hope. It is a documented pattern. The period before anyone takes you seriously is not a waiting room where you suffer. It is a laboratory where you become something they were never prepared for. But you cannot run the laboratory with observers who interfere with every experiment. You cannot build something new inside a room full of people who only recognize the old blueprints. After Machiavelli was exiled from Florence, stripped of his position, his relevance, his proximity to power, he retreated, not in defeat, in deliberate removal. He spent years in solitude so complete, so enforced, that the only audience left was himself. And in that solitude, with no one left to perform for, no circle to maintain, no loyalty to manage, he wrote The Prince, the most precise manual on power in human history. It was not written in the court. It was written in the absence of the court. The work that outlasted every person who ever dismissed him was produced in the silence they created when they removed him. That is what silence as a weapon means at its final form. It is not the silence of someone waiting to be called back. It is the silence of someone who has stopped waiting entirely, who has turned the quiet into output, who has made the space others created for their absence into the exact environment where they become something no one anticipated. Most people are afraid of a smaller circle because they have confused quantity of access with proof of worth. But the powerful have always known the truth. Solitude is not isolation. Solitude is selection, and selection is the language power speaks when it is done explaining itself. Power is a language, silence is a weapon, and the ignored, when they stop performing for audiences who were never worthy of the performance, they do not disappear. They become something no one around them was ever equipped to contain. If what you heard tonight landed somewhere real, if something in this video named something you have felt but never said, then what you do next is simple. Like this video, it costs you nothing, and it tells the algorithm that this content belongs in front of the right people. Subscribe to Machiavelli Ascend, not because every channel deserves a subscriber, because you are the specific kind of person this channel is built for. The one who is awake enough to see the game and is now deciding whether to play it or keep watching from the outside. Type one sentence in the comments, not for this channel, for yourself. Type this: I am done being available to everyone who was never invested in my elevation. Type it because it is not a comment, it is a decision, and every decision becomes more real the moment it leaves your mind and enters the world. When you stop being available to everyone, you stop being controllable by anyone.